The first saying of Jesus from the cross was this: "Forgive them, for they know not what they do." This saying represents one of the greatest understatements in human history. Forgive them, Jesus said, speaking of the soldiers, because they don't know what they are doing. They think they are putting an end to something, and they are, but something else is happening as well. About that, they have no idea. The story won't end here. It will continue. And indeed, the story of Jesus has continued. 2,000 years later, 1/3 of humanity, 2.2 billion people, identify themselves as the followers of the Christ. And many of the rest of us recognize him as a prophet worth contemplating. The poet writes, "The story of the end, of the last word of the end, when told, is a story that never ends. We tell it and retell it, one word, then another, until it seems at last no last word is possible, that none would be bearable. Thus, when the hero of the story says to himself, as to someone far away, 'Forgive them, for they know not what they do,' we may feel that he is pleading for us, that we are the secret life of the story, and as long as his plea is not answered, we will be spared. So the story continues. So we continue. And the end, once more, becomes the next, and the next after that. Think about the worst day of your life. Think about the time you got the worst news ever from your doctor or your boss or your spouse or your child. Think about the time you failed most miserably, or betrayed someone most painfully, or succumbed to temptation most destructively. And then think about what came next. What seemed like the end, given that you didn't die, wasn't the end after all. And even death isn't the end. The story of your life and your influence will continue always. The first insight is that in the end, the story never ends. And in the spirit of the story that continues with us, I invite you to rise as you are willing and able and repeat with me our bond of union. In the freedom of the truth and in the spirit of love, we unite for the worship of God and the service of all. The second saying of Jesus from the cross was this: "You shall be with me in paradise." He suggests that the path to paradise, the spiritual symbol of what we most deeply want, may require us to endure periods of darkness. Jesus became a source of hope not by denying the suffering of his people and the brutality of the Romans, but by taking them into his heart and even into his body. He was, the scriptures say, a man of sorrows and acquainted with grief. The poet writes, "There is an island in the dark, a dreamed-of place where the muttering wind shifts over the white lawns and riffles the leaves of trees, the high trees that are streaked with gold and line the walkways there. And those already arrived are happy to be silken remains of something they were but cannot recall. They move to the sound of stars, which is also imagined, but who cares about that? The polished columns they see may be no more than shafts of sunlight. But for those who live on and on in the radiance of their remains, this is of little importance. There is an island in the dark, and you will be there, I promise you. You shall be with me in paradise, in the single season of being, in the place of forever. You shall find yourself. And there the leaves will turn and never fall. There the wind will sing and be your voice as if for the first time. No matter what we most deeply want, we too may find ourselves in the dark. The darkness of ignorance or doubt or failure or even of depression. The mystical tradition calls these periods the dark night of the soul. Sometimes, if we are fortunate, these times of soul searching will lead to self-discovery. We find ourselves. We learn to admit our shortcomings, accept our brokenness, and confess our sins. At other times, especially with depression, we may find that we need help just to endure the darkness. In either case, the path to wherever we want to go begins where we are. The second insight is that we may find ourselves and perhaps even discover ourselves in the dark. The third saying of Jesus from the cross was this: "Woman, look at your son. Son, look at your mother." At first glance, this appears to be an effort by a dying man to make provisions for his mother, apparently while directing her attention to John, his close friend and favorite follower. "Behold your son." And then he said to John, "Behold your mother." This gesture bears witness to the compassion Jesus consistently showed for others. The poet writes, "Someday someone will write a story telling, among other things, of a parting between mother and son, of how she wandered off, of how he vanished into the air. But before that happens, it will describe how their faces shone with a feeble light, and how the son was moved to say, 'Woman, look at your son.' Then to a friend nearby, 'Son, look at your mother.' At which point the writer will put down his pen and imagine that while those words were spoken, something else happened. Something unusual, like a purpose revealed, a secret exchanged, a truth to which they, the mother and son, would be bound, but what it was, no one would know, not even the writer." Especially when you encounter dark periods in your life, which all of us inevitably do, don't try to go it alone. Reach out to others for help, for friendship, for comfort, for guidance, for encouragement. Lean on them, and they, in their times of struggle, will lean on you. We are constituted by our relationships. Do your part to keep them strong. Because we share a common destiny, we walk together through life. The third insight is that we are bound to each other in ways beyond knowing. The fourth saying of Jesus from the cross was this: "Father, Father, why have you forsaken me?" In the earliest gospel account of Jesus' crucifixion, the writer says that Jesus was crucified at 9 a.m. From noon to 3 p.m., while Jesus was still alive, the writer says, a great darkness fell over all the land. Against this backdrop, the fourth saying of Jesus from the cross, the plaintive cry, "Why have you forsaken me?" echoes in the darkness. Jesus feels utterly alone and completely forsaken. And he cries out in protest, demanding to know why. The poet writes, "These are the days of spring when the sky is filled with the odor of lilac, when darkness becomes desire, and there is nothing that does not wish to be born. Days when the fate of the present is a breezy fullness, when the world's gift for fiction gilds even the dirt we walk on, and we feel we could live forever, while knowing, of course, we can't. Such is our plight. The masters of weather and everything else, if they want, can bring forth a dark of a different kind, one hidden by darkness so deep it cannot be seen. No one escapes, not even the one who believed he was chosen to do so. For when the dark came down, he cried out, 'Father, Father, why have you forsaken me?' To which no answer came." When bad things happen to us, you and I should also take life to task. Press it hard, insisting upon answers. We also should cry out, "Why? Why?" But here's the problem. The answer may not come. Sometimes things happen that don't make sense. Sometimes bad things happen to good people. Sometimes evildoers triumph. Whether or not you find an answer, you will know what you cried out for, what you most deeply want and need. The fourth insight is that even the deepest darkness can't hide our deepest longings. The fifth saying of Jesus from the cross was this: "I thirst." No one knows how long Jesus had been hanging on the cross when he said, "I thirst," but he expresses a non-negotiable human need. The poet writes, "To be thirsty, to say, 'I thirst,' to close one's eyes and see the giant world that is born each time the eyes are closed, to see one's death, to see the darkening clouds as the tragic cloth of a day in mourning, to be the one mourned, to open the dictionary of the beyond and discover what one suspected, that the only word in it is nothing. To try to open one's eyes, but not to be able to feel the mouth burn, to feel the sudden presence of what again and again was not said, to translate it and have it remain unsaid, to know at last that nothing is more real than nothing. Under ordinary circumstances, we take our need for physical and social sustenance, air, water, and food, as well as nurture and companionship, for granted. But under conditions of extreme deprivation, we become powerfully aware of our utter reliance on the people and world around us for everything we need. The image of a human being as self-sustaining and self-reliant plays a central role in the self-portrait of us as humans, especially of us as Americans, and most especially of us who identify as male. But the image is a mirage, the product of wishful thinking. In fact, we can't do anything on our own. We rely utterly on the people and world around us. We can't even make water on our own, not even when we are thirsty. And we're never more aware of what we need than when it's not there. The fifth insight is that nothing is more real than the presence of what's absent. The sixth saying of Jesus from the cross was this: "It is finished." He declared that something had happened that could never be undone. His life had come to one particular and definite conclusion, one that could never be changed. What was done was forever done. The poet writes, "It is finished," he said. You could hear him say it, the words almost a whisper, then not even that, but an echo so faint it seemed to no longer to come from him, but from elsewhere. This was his moment, his final moment. "It is finished," he said, into a vastness that led to an ever greater vastness, and yet all of it within him. He contained it all. That was the miracle, to be both large and small in the same instant, to be like us, but more so, and then finally to give up the ghost, which is what happened. And from the storm that swirled in his wake, a formal nakedness took shape. The truth of disguise and the mask of belief were joined forever. It's true that in the end, the story never ends. But it's also true that along the way, the story can't be rewritten. We can't unsay what we have already said or undo what we have already done. But even though we can't rewrite the past, we can write the future. As long as we're alive, we continually stand before a range of new possibilities for how the future will unfold. We choose from among them what to say now, what to do now. Given the constraints of the past, which may be considerable, anything is possible. The sixth insight is that in each moment, something final creates new possibilities. The seventh and final saying of Jesus from the cross was this: "Into your hands I commit my spirit." The poet writes, "Back down these stairs to the same scene, to the moon, the stars, the night wind. Hours pass and only the harp off in the distance and the wind moving through it. And soon the sun's gray disk, darkened by clouds, sailing above. And beyond, as always, the sea of endless transparence, of utmost calm, a place of constant beginning that has within it what no eye has seen, what no ear has heard, what no hand has touched, what has not arisen in the human heart. To that place of constant beginning, to the keeper of that place. I commit myself. The Holy Week journey from the darkness and death of Friday to the light and life of Sunday is a journey all of us will probably make sometime in our lives. We find ourselves in the darkness of loneliness or failure or grief or self-doubt. When this happens, we may feel like the story of our lives has reached a tragic conclusion. We may feel like it's the end for us. But as long as we continue to be given the gift of another day, it's not the end. Even if we find ourselves in the dark, we can look for light to brighten our horizon. The light of a second chance, a fresh start, a new beginning. No matter what's past, we're constantly beckoned toward what's possible. And that's worth living for. The seventh insight is that today marks the beginning.